You've been rejected, overlooked, or dismissed, and it feels like it's happening to you personally. But the truth is, it's not about you. Not really. Modern male rejection isn't random. It's rooted in psychology, biology, and social dynamics that most men never understand. The world has changed, and the rules of attraction have shifted under your feet, leaving many men confused, frustrated, and questioning their worth. This isn't about being nice or trying harder. It's about understanding invisible forces that determine desire long before a word is spoken. Here's the first brutal truth. Attraction is subconscious. Women rarely reject a man based on his income, his looks, or his accomplishments alone. They reject men based on the energy he radiates, the subtle cues of confidence, autonomy, and emotional depth. Most men mistake rejection for personal failure, but psychology tells us it's actually a mismatch of energy. You can be kind, intelligent, even funny, and still be rejected if your presence communicates neediness, insecurity, or predictability. Rejection isn't punishment, it's feedback from the unconscious mind. Think about the men who seem to effortlessly attract women. They aren't necessarily smarter, better looking, or richer. They carry an energy that signals autonomy, value, and grounded presence. They navigate the world without needing permission, without seeking validation, and without trying to fit a mold. Women subconsciously register that energy and respond with desire, or the lack of it. When a man is constantly trying, over-explaining, or seeking approval, he triggers a different psychological signal: safety, predictability, and scarcity of tension. Safe men are liked, but rarely desired. Modern rejection is amplified because social dynamics have shifted. Women today have more options, more exposure to social validation, and more tools to unconsciously assess a man's energy instantly. The competition is not just external, it's psychological. Men who fail to understand these subtle cues are constantly left behind, frustrated by repeated rejection despite doing everything right. By the end of this video, you'll understand why modern male rejection happens, what women are unconsciously reacting to, and how to shift your presence, energy, and psychology so that rejection is no longer the default, but desire becomes the norm. Most men never get this insight, and that's why they remain stuck, invisible, or misunderstood. The first thing most men fail to realize is that rejection isn't random, it's a pattern. Women aren't consciously deciding to reject you because of a single flaw. They're reacting to a combination of energy, behavior, and unspoken cues that signal your emotional state. Modern rejection often stems from subtle signals that you might not even notice: over-eagerness, inconsistency, lack of presence, or emotional volatility. Psychology shows us that women respond more to these invisible cues than to anything you say or do consciously. Most men assume rejection comes from not being good enough, but that's misleading. In reality, it's often about perceived scarcity and neediness. When you try too hard to gain approval, when every text, compliment, or gesture is calculated to elicit a reaction, you broadcast desperation. Even a good personality or impressive accomplishments can't compensate for the subconscious signal of dependence. Rejection is the unconscious mind protecting her from energy that feels weak or unstable. Another hidden pattern is predictability. The human brain craves a balance of safety and tension. Women are naturally drawn to men who demonstrate emotional autonomy and unpredictability, controlled, respectful, and intriguing energy. When a man is overly predictable, overly agreeable, or constantly available, he becomes background noise. He is liked, perhaps even admired, but desire rarely forms. This is why so many men with perfect resumes of character traits are ignored, while other men capture attention effortlessly. Modern rejection is also amplified by the sheer volume of social options. Women are constantly exposed to signals from multiple men, messages, attention, and subtle emotional cues. In this environment, women unconsciously filter out energy that doesn't trigger desire immediately. This isn't personal, it's evolutionary. She is wired to respond to signals of value, stability, and presence in an era where options are abundant and attention is scarce. Understanding these patterns is crucial. Rejection is rarely about flaws, it's about energy alignment. When your emotional state, presence, and autonomy aren't calibrated to the subconscious triggers of attraction, rejection becomes the default. Awareness of this is the first step toward reclaiming control. Here's the truth most men never face. Desire isn't built on effort, it's built on energy. You can be polite, intelligent, and accomplished, yet still be rejected if your presence communicates uncertainty, neediness, or emotional instability. Women subconsciously scan for these cues before you even speak. Attraction is biological, emotional, and deeply instinctual. It's not about how much you try or how good your personality is. The men who avoid rejection instinctively trigger these psychological signals because they operate from grounded energy, not desperation. Understanding rejection is one thing, but changing your energy to trigger desire is where most men fail. The first actionable strategy is boundary mastery. Most rejected men overextend themselves, constantly seeking approval, validation, or attention. Boundaries aren't just about saying no, they're about signaling self-respect and autonomy. When you protect your time, your priorities, and your emotional space, you broadcast value without words. This is magnetic because it communicates strength, consistency, and independence, qualities women subconsciously crave. Next is presence practice. Stop performing to impress. Stop over-explaining or overcompensating with humor, charm, or effort. Presence is fully inhabiting the moment. Make her feel your energy by being grounded, calm, and observant. Subtle cues, a steady gaze, relaxed posture, and responsive listening activate unconscious attraction. Presence is more powerful than any line, gesture, or gift. It signals that you are complete on your own and that your attention is deliberate, not desperate. Another powerful strategy is emotional contrast. Predictable emotional states are safe, but safe doesn't equal desired. Controlled emotional peaks and valleys, intensity balanced with calmness, create tension and intrigue. Share your opinions, passions, or convictions with authenticity, then return to calm confidence. This ebb and flow triggers subconscious dopamine release, keeping her mind engaged and her attention drawn to you. Most men never realize how powerful this dynamic is because they think consistency means being nice all the time. Autonomy in action is equally critical. Women unconsciously assess whether a man has his own life, goals, and direction. When you operate from purpose, decision-making, and independence, you trigger desire without trying. Don't wait for her validation or approval to act. Act decisively and let her notice. Autonomy signals security, self-reliance, and value, psychologically irresistible traits. Finally, integrate controlled mystery. Share yourself, but don't reveal everything immediately. Subtle intrigue, emotional depth, and selective self-disclosure create curiosity. Women feel the pull without consciously realizing why. The combination of boundaries, presence, emotional contrast, autonomy, and mystery transforms how you are perceived, from another good guy who is liked to a man who is unconsciously desired. Here's the truth most men never face. Desire isn't built on effort, it's built on energy. You can be polite, intelligent, and accomplished, yet still be rejected if your presence communicates uncertainty, neediness, or emotional instability. Women subconsciously scan for these cues before you even speak. Attraction is biological, emotional, and deeply instinctual. It's not about how much you try or how good your personality is. The men who avoid rejection instinctively trigger these psychological signals because they operate from grounded energy, not desperation. The first shift is emotional autonomy. Most rejected men give away their power by tying their emotional state to her reactions. Every unread text, every delayed response, every perceived disinterest triggers anxiety, which subtly broadcasts low value. Women detect this instantly. Emotional autonomy means your internal state is independent of her validation. You are not reacting to her energy, you are maintaining your own. That separation creates a magnetic pull because it signals strength, confidence, and stability, qualities deeply desired at a subconscious level. Next is anchored presence. Presence isn't just showing up physically, it's how you occupy space emotionally and mentally. A man who is fully present during interactions engages a woman unconsciously. Eye contact, subtle body language, calm energy, and attentive listening communicate authenticity and groundedness. Most rejected men overcompensate with words, gestures, or humor, trying to impress instead of existing fully. The difference is subtle but devastating. Presence alone triggers desire far more than any nice guy effort ever could. Another overlooked shift is controlled unpredictability. Desire thrives on tension. Predictable men feel safe but boring. Controlled unpredictability, small surprises, emotional contrast, or subtle confidence signals creates intrigue. It's not manipulation, it's aligning your energy with the natural rhythm of attraction. Women are wired to notice these micro shifts unconsciously, and it's why some men effortlessly command attention while others are consistently rejected despite doing everything right. Finally, mindset transforms everything. When you stop equating rejection with personal failure and start viewing it as feedback from subconscious attraction systems, you operate differently. You act with autonomy, presence, and subtle unpredictability, not to impress, but because that is who you are. That shift alone changes the game entirely. Understanding energy shifts is one thing, but sustaining them is what separates men who remain rejected from men who naturally attract attention. Most men give their presence and autonomy in bursts, only to fall back into people-pleasing, over-explaining, or chasing approval when faced with challenge. Consistency is the invisible backbone of attraction. Desire is built over repeated interactions where your energy signals stability, confidence, and subtle unpredictability simultaneously. The first principle is emotional resilience. Rejection happens, texts go unanswered, plans fall through, but your energy must remain anchored. Emotional resilience isn't suppression, it's control. You acknowledge disappointment, but don't allow it to erode your presence or self-worth. Women unconsciously notice this stability. Men who react emotionally or cling to validation broadcast weakness. Men who maintain calm and composed energy, even when faced with subtle rejection, signal strength, autonomy, and value, qualities that consistently trigger desire. Next is integrated presence. This is more than a skill, it's a lifestyle. Ground yourself in routines, purpose, and self-mastery. Presence is amplified when your life doesn't revolve around her validation. Your attention, humor, and engagement are deliberate because you are fully anchored in your own world. Over time, repeated exposure to a man who operates from grounded energy fosters attraction that feels natural, effortless, and unconscious. Emotional contrast and controlled unpredictability must also be maintained. A man who is always predictable, always agreeable, or always emotionally flat becomes invisible. Alternating intensity and calm, showing subtle layers of depth over time, keeps desire alive. Women respond biologically to tension and contrast, and sustained exposure to this dynamic strengthens attraction at a subconscious level. Finally, autonomy and mystery are ongoing practices. Never sacrifice your purpose, priorities, or individuality to maintain someone's attention. Let your life remain interesting, your passions active, and your boundaries clear. Selective disclosure, subtle intrigue, and confident independence keep your energy magnetic and your presence irresistible. Here's the final truth most men never fully understand. Rejection is not a judgment on your value, it's a reflection of energy alignment. Women are unconsciously scanning for autonomy, presence, emotional depth, and controlled intensity long before words are exchanged. When your energy doesn't match those psychological triggers, rejection becomes the default. The men who avoid it effortlessly are not better people. They are men who master their energy, presence, and emotional resonance. The shift is subtle but profound. When you operate from emotional autonomy, grounded presence, and controlled unpredictability, you stop being just another man in her life. You become someone who is unconsciously desired. Boundaries, emotional contrast, mystery, and self-respect are not tricks. They are signals of your intrinsic value. Women respond to these signals instinctively, without rational thought, and that's why the good guy who tries too hard is repeatedly overlooked. Modern male rejection is amplified by social exposure, abundance of choice, and constant comparison. But you can rise above it by anchoring yourself in purpose, practicing presence, and maintaining autonomy. When rejection occurs, it becomes feedback, not failure. You adapt, refine, and reinforce the energy patterns that trigger attraction subconsciously. Desire is no longer elusive. It becomes a natural response to the energy you radiate consistently. Now, here's a question for reflection. If your daily presence, emotional autonomy, and boundary mastery multiplied by your ability to maintain intrigue equals your personal attraction score, what's your number today? Be honest. Write it in the comments. This isn't just theory. It's a mirror to evaluate where you are and where you need to grow. If this video opened your eyes, like it, subscribe for more insights most men never hear, and share it with a friend who needs this reality check. Remember, rejection is rarely personal. Attraction is energy. And once you master your energy, rejection stops being the rule and becomes the rare exception. Your presence is your power, and that power is everything.